Abizer Diwanji on the line. Mr. Diwanji, good morning. I know we spoke last evening, but I just wanted to get a sense from you. Now that you've had some time to sort of gather your thoughts, I just want to get your sense as to the exit of the CEO at a time when there's a lot of governance-related questions that are being raised about the bank. The board has now appointed a committee of executives to run the bank in the absence of a new CEO. There is likely going to be some amount of fast track. How are you seeing these developments reputationally, functionally at the bank? How are you seeing this?
One, Vishy, I think it was very obvious that it's going to happen. Question was when it's going to happen. And in my opinion, the sooner the better. We've had precedents, where RBI had shortened the terms of some ex-CEOs, which, Shikha in particular, and she stepped down and said, "See, I want to step down from the board. There's no point continuing." So I think it's kind of furthered the move. It was the inevitable that was waiting to happen. But, as I was reflecting, as you rightly said, since yesterday, and I was reflecting that why has all this triggered? And this all triggered, yeah, of course, there was a derivatives problem and the accounting moral responsibility has been taken by the CEO, and that's fine. That can happen in any organization. But look at the larger picture. This is regulatorily driven. What has really happened is that the real kicker is not the derivative transaction. The real kicker has been RBI saying that your term is extended only by 1 year, effectively saying that I'm not going to extend it for. Effectively putting the organization or a bank in the limbo where it is operating only on a short-term basis in 1 year. And it was inevitable that the bank had to find a new CEO. Thereafter, of course, the derivative disclosures happened and it hastened the whole process. And I rightly think it's hastened the process because at least gives some more certainty. The bank will look more aggressively for a CEO maybe earlier. So that is going to happen, and the bank will, get back to stability quicker. But the real issue is that this is a regulatory-driven move. Imagine something like this happening in the corporate world in a manufacturing company, where there is no regulator who decides what's the tenure of the CEO. The CEO would never have resigned.
Yeah. Abizer,
look at it. That is such a regulatorily-driven thing, where unless the regulator says, "Sorry, I'm not extending your term," the CEO does not go.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, we have a board which is so regulatorily driven again. How much do I put responsibility on the board? The question I'd like to ask. Because the regulator says every policy has to be approved by the board, and the board gets so involved in the nitty-gritty of the organization that the larger business picture is missed.
Yeah.
So, this is maybe an overtly vigilant regulator pushing down on a bank or a regulated financial institution. So I would look at it more as that, because we've discussed enough about the derivative issue.
Yes, okay, that is fair. I just want to ask, Abizer, with regard to what happens over the course of the next 3 months. Hi, Alex here, good morning. And thanks so much for joining us this early. But the question really that I think investors are going to be asking is that there is clearly going to be a period of uncertainty. And while you're saying that we've fast-tracked perhaps, or rather the bank has fast-tracked the process of that cleanup and the return to stability, what happens in the interim? Because a bank cannot be a democracy. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So it can't work in committees. So I think the appointment of the CEO will happen much quicker. A committee is just an interim measure. Though I would actually say that, when you had such a long tail in terms of deciding, you had 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And I think a smooth transition by appointing a new CEO would have been a better option than appointing an executive committee, but I'm sure they have their compulsions. But having said that, you just look at the larger picture and what has happened to other banks. Like we've had, RBL, we've had Yes Bank, we've had Tamil Nadu Mercantile Bank, all these kind of banks who've then had interim people coming in once the CEO has gone out. Even after a new CEO has come in, there has been elongated periods of, you can call it stability, but I would say, recalibrating of an organization. And that recalibration period takes time. If you look at, RBL, it started at a peak of, its optimism, and then there was a regulatory overdrive. The new CEO comes, the new CEO focuses, one, on cleaning up the book, and secondly, pleasing the regulator. And then he starts his growth process. And some people do successful growth. Some people, become victims of market cycles. But irrespective of that, the whole period of stability is just not appointing of a new CEO. It's that CEO then stabilizing the organization over time, making sure he's on the right side of the regulator, and then focusing on growth. So I think that's a 2 to 3 year process, in my opinion. That will happen, in my opinion, may also happen in the current bank.
Quick question. In the absence of an interim CEO, that essentially the board is unable to decide who is the person who can stabilize the ship in the interim, it's safe to say then that you wouldn't see an internal candidate come in the list that goes to the RBI, right?
Maybe there could be internal candidates coming. I think it's just that the board may not have decided on its shortlist, but it's also in all likelihood, if you go by past history, of other banks, it's external people come in, and again, if you look at past history, I think the odds are in favor of a PSU banker sometimes coming.
Thanks so much, Abizer, for joining us this morning. I think a lot of investors will have listened to this conversation and gotten more clarity than they had yesterday.
Thank you.